Past Commander.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Lee.
Hi. Now, usually we have a telephone number that we'll be putting up here in a little while, Fred, but this is a significant day, Fred. And of course, everyone's been thinking to themselves about a day 30 years ago when we lost the President of the United States. And usually the older people that remember that event, Fred, I heard on the news today that 45% of the people in this country weren't even born 30 years ago. But for those that do remember, it's interesting to find out where they were at on that day, Fred, and at that time, which is roughly around noon. Well, where were you at on November 22nd, 1963, Fred?
I was home in my apartment in Long Island City or Astoria, New York.
Yeah.
And we weren't watching the television when it happened. However, my daughter come running up from downstairs and said the president's been shot, and we put on the television then.
And that was it, huh? Then you went back to watching football or what?
No, we weren't watching football at all. They weren't playing football then, at that day, at least as far as I was concerned.
So you just said that's nice, and then went back to.
No, we looked at what was on the news.
Uh-huh. So that was it, huh?
That was it.
Well, I was a little bit younger than you, Fred. You've probably seen things like that all the time, being through World War II and stuff, probably didn't face. But to me, it was kind of a interesting turning point in my life, Fred, because I was just about, probably going on 14. And to me, that was quite a day, Fred. I remember I was in the library of my junior high school. I came over the intercom, and a lot of people, a lot of sad faces that day. Then I remember later that night, it was on a Friday night, so back where I was from, all the kids would go to the theater on Friday night. And I remember it was a wet and kind of a cold, wet, rainy evening, and right in the middle of the movie, I think it was a James Bond movie, all the lights went off, the electricity went out. So it was just a kind of a scary day and a kind of a different day for the people of the United States, Fred.
It was. It was a tragic day.
Yep. Now, I think we're going to focus in on another tragedy, Fred, that happened just a few weeks ago. A bright upcoming star, stage and screen, named River Phoenix.
Yes.
Who was
Yes.
involved in a new movie that he was working on, but I guess he got pretty well loaded up on cocaine and heroin and marijuana and several other drugs, some alcohol and some over-the-counter cold medicine, and went into a seizure up in front of a nightclub.
And he died.
And he never came out of the seizure. His brother was yelling for somebody to help. Of course, 911's about all you can call, and there's what happens to a bright upcoming star, the stage and screen. There he is in the coffin, Fred. And,
yes.
That's too bad. But that's what happens when you get involved in the drug scene at an early age like that, Fred. Got a lot of money to throw around, and he's not the first and probably won't be the last major star that's had that problem.
That's very true.
Now, I notice you're flipping through the pages there, Fred. Have you found anything worth talking about?
Well, I was looking for something I just saw a few minutes ago, and I can't locate it now.
Okay, well, while you're looking for that in those volumes and reams of material, I know that you have to bring a briefcase with you to bring all that stuff in here.
Page 20, yeah.
We're going to go to an interview with the State Senator Bob Welch. But first, before we go into that...
State Representative, sir.
First, well, thank you, Fred. I'm sure that we'll all appreciate the correction. But first, Fred, we got a call on line 1 here, so we should take that call before we go to that
Right.
interview. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Hello? Well, as usual, we have technical difficulties here, Fred. When you're doing a live show, it's the type of thing happens here, but I've got
Did you
to...
test the phone before?
Whoops, got something in there. Hello? Now, if the technical wizards on the other end in there will leave the phone alone, once we get a call, you got to just let it come through. Hello? Okay, we're going to go to that interview with State Representative Bob Welch from, where's he from?
Red Granite,
Red Granite. And I did
Wisconsin.
I did an interview with him on the 1st of October this year.
Welcome to this edition of Tower Report with Chuck Lee. I'm your host for today, and today we have a special interview with State Representative Bob Welch from the state of Wisconsin, and he is running for U.S. Senator, and he's in town today for a dinner and a get-together with fellow Republicans and conservatives in the local Eau Claire area, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's program, Bob.
Well, thanks for having me, Chuck.
Nice to see you. I understand you're running for the U.S. Senate. Now, why do you want to run for the U.S. Senate?
Well, I want to run for U.S. Senate to take common sense.
Well, unfortunately, due to the modern conveniences of reacclimated to this Wisconsin weather,
Okay, you're running against U.S. Senator Mr. Cole, or Herb Cole from Milwaukee area. Now, how do your chances look so far? What kind of response are you getting around the state?
I've been getting very, very positive response. I think Senator Cole is very weak as a senator. He has not done a good job of getting out and meeting and dealing with his constituents, and he does not have a record that reflects what the people of Wisconsin want to see happening.
You wanted to talk a little bit about the gas tax that took effect today. What do you think about this new gas tax? How's it going to affect the average driver?
Well, unfortunately, there's been a lot of misconceptions about the gas tax. People say, well, it's not going to cost you very much money as a driver of your personal vehicle. What it does, however, do is cost you a lot of money in terms of how much you pay for groceries, how much you pay for your heat bill, how much you pay for just about anything you want to buy, because all those things, of course, are hauled across the highways or flown through the airs, and they will pay the increased gas tax. And so it's going to cost Wisconsin approximately 1,700 jobs because of the net effect of slowing down the economy by siphoning that money off and sending it to Washington.
Now, is this the only tax on gas we can expect between now and, say, 96 elections?
I think that there's going to be a lot more increases in taxes between now and then if something isn't changed in Washington. I think that one reason that my election to the U.S. Senate is so important is that most of these taxes and most of these plans are passing the Senate by one vote. And it's put a few new people out there who don't support taxes, who don't support more government spending, and who want to see a more common sense approach to government will make a difference in terms of what will happen.
Now, what are some of the other issues that you're going to be talking about over the next year and a half, 2 years? Well, I guess next year.
Next year, I think that the big issues are a couple. One is really holding down taxes and getting a handle on spending, controlling the deficit by cutting spending. I have pledged and will continue to pledge that I will not vote to raise taxes. That's a pledge that very few senators have been willing to take. I'm going to put together a balanced budget plan that shows how we can get to a balanced budget. No one has done that yet. I'm going to be proposing a new welfare system, which basically throws out this welfare system and replaces it with a system based on work, because I think that is necessary in order to save our inner cities from the kind of destruction that has gone on to the family and to the community there.
Okay, I wanted to ask you questions about some social issues that are probably going to come up over the next year. The first one, I guess, in this area we have a lot of hunters. A lot of people like to buy guns. They buy them for protection. They buy them for hunting whatsoever. What's your feelings on the Brady bill and other gun laws that are being considered in Washington?
Well, I support the right to keep and bear arms. I think that the citizens of this state have shown that the vast majority of people who own guns use them responsibly and for sport or for protection. And to have a law that says that we're going to solve crime by taking guns off the streets is very naive. There are no more guns in Milwaukee today than there were 30 years ago, and yet we see a whole lot more crime. Obviously, guns aren't the problem. It's the people using them.
Well, we can look at Washington, D.C. Got the toughest gun laws in the country, and it's got the highest murder rate in the country. And as a matter of fact, the mayor of Washington wants to call in the National Guard. Now, how are you going to feel about working under those conditions in Washington?
Well, I've been to Washington a few times, and it's not all that bad, but it is not a pleasant place for many of the people who live there. Milwaukee is getting worse, and a lot of our other areas in Wisconsin also. We do need to deal with the crime issue. I've been a proponent of very tough sentencing laws and of really cracking down on juvenile crime, but you know, there's a long way to go between here and there in solving that problem. And I think changing the welfare system is an important part of changing that crime situation.
Okay. Another issue that a lot of people in California are worried about, and to a certain extent Minnesota and Wisconsin, is illegal immigration. Do you have any feelings on what to do about the influx of immigrants into this country?
Well, you said that there's legal immigration and there's illegal immigration. I'm not one to change our legal immigration standards. I think they're fairly well put together, but we need to really clamp down on illegal immigration, particularly the rulings or the court rulings that force governments to provide free schooling and welfare to people who are illegal immigrants. That, to me, does not make any sense at all. If you're here illegally, you don't really have constitutional rights to those kind of services. And if we could begin to scale those back, I think you'd see a lot less of the influx you do now.
Okay, what about any kind of reforms in school? We have the Department of Education, a giant multi-billion-dollar budget in Washington. William Bennett tried to cut back in some areas, but it just grew under him. What are your feelings on school choice and other innovations in education? Do you have any ideas of your own on that situation?
Well, I've been one of the chief advocates of education reform in Madison during my tenure there, and I think Madison is an appropriate place to discuss school reform. Even more appropriate is right here in the Eau Claire School Board. The federal government is not an appropriate place, I don't think. They can do a few things, but I really don't know that we even need a federal Department of Education. I think they should be left to the states. Perhaps we need to set some voluntary national standards to let people know what it is we're trying to achieve. But unfortunately, you often start on those standards with good intentions and end up with standards that don't really have anything to do with reality. So even that, I think, is probably best to leave with the states. As far as school choice, I favor school choice. I've been a big supporter of the charter school proposal that went through the legislature. I'm supportive of the initiative in Milwaukee that does have a private school choice component. I think we have to move slowly, however, in the private school area and look at public school choice with maybe a reconfiguring of what public schools are and how their mission is designated.
Would you be in favor of like some kind of voucher system or some kind of tax rebate to, say, people in the Catholic or Lutheran schools?
I think that I'm in favor of trying it. I'm not so sure that the voucher proposals that I've seen in the legislature currently are ones that I would support. I do believe that anyone who wants money from the federal government in terms of a school needs to be providing an education that's basically free and needs to be allowing anyone in who wants to apply. And under the current system, because it doesn't put enough money into the voucher, it requires some payment from the parents on top and doesn't really get at that problem of a free education. But we do need to do some things differently, and I think I'm in favor of anything that would be tried to open up the system and provide more initiative to those who are actually on the front line, the parents and the classroom teachers.
Okay, another issue that I'm sure will be discussed is the big A word, abortion. What's your feelings on abortion issue and choice and anti-choice and right to life and all that?
Well, I'm pro-life, and I consider myself a moderate on the subject, however many wouldn't. I do have my my beliefs. They are my personal beliefs, but I do feel it's important to have those put into the statutes in terms of protecting people. I've been an author of the parental consent bill in the legislature, and I am opposed to federal funding of abortions.
What can we do to streamline U.S. government to make it more responsive to the people? It seems to be a big monolith in Washington. The money flows out there. If we're lucky if Wisconsin gets back 30-40% of what we send out there. What can we do to change the way government is looked upon by the citizens?
Well, I think that you do have to do some reinventing of government. It's a cliche term these days, but Al Gore's commission did come up with some good ideas, quite frankly, and I think that those need to be implemented. However, there's a whole lot of things that they left untouched, and particularly some of the bigger program areas. To give you an example, Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, is a program that's been around since the 60s, spends billions and billions of dollars on housing, and very little of that money actually goes toward helping people who are poor and need housing. A lot of it just ends up buying big monolithic apartment buildings that end up getting ruined after 10 or 15 years. That's a generalization, but it's a program that needs to be basically thrown out again, start over. And that's the kind of thing we need to do, is start saying, is this program really doing what it set out to accomplish, or is it just treading water? And I think we need to do that with a lot of our big programs.
Okay, another issue that Governor Thompson just was in Washington testifying for, and we got Mr. Perot that's against it, and Gebhardt's against it. It's called NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. How do you feel about that agreement?
Well, like Governor Thompson, I'm a supporter of NAFTA. I believe that there will be dislocations. Some people will lose their jobs. Probably they will lose them anyway, whether NAFTA passes or not, because it is a global market we're now competing in, and there are going to be dislocations as we adjust to that. However, in the end, free trade is good for Wisconsin, good for the nation, good for the world, and I think we need to be looking at free trade in that perspective. NAFTA particularly opens up a Mexican market that's been closed to our manufactured and agricultural products. It doesn't really open up America's market much more than they are already. That's a big misconception. And also a fact is that Mexico right now buys more from us than we buy from them. Many people find that hard to believe, but it's true right now. By having NAFTA signed, we will have a big advantage over Japan or Europe in terms of that Mexican market. And I think the net result is that that's good for Wisconsin and good for jobs here and good for the economy.
Okay, what do you feel about like foreign aid and aid to different countries, and it eats up a lot of our taxes. Where do you, like giving money to the United Nations for peacekeeping and things in that area? Are our military being used like in Somalia?
Well, it's a couple different questions. The foreign aid, I think there's some limited use for foreign aid, but I think we waste a lot of our foreign aid money, and I'd like to see a lot of it redirected and a lot less spent. In terms of our sovereignty and how we deal with the United Nations and under whose command we use our military, I feel very strongly that we need to keep our military under American command and leadership. Certainly we need to be cooperating with the United Nations in terms of our efforts overseas, but we need to have our military fighting men and women fighting under U.S. command at under our sovereignty, or we shouldn't do that.
Okay, another issue right now that is hot in Washington, and it'll probably be around a year from now, is health insurance. And everybody's got a plan. Madison's got 6, 7 plans floating around. I know in Washington there's several different plans, but Hillary's plan seems to be winning the day. What's your feelings on the new health card? And like one issue on that is abortion on demand. People take that card, walk into an office, say, I want an abortion. And Hillary and her people are saying this is going to be part of the health plan. But aside from that, how do you feel about a national health plan, and what's it going to do? How's it going to affect the taxes?
I don't think Hillary's plan is going to pass. I think that it's much too unwieldy, it's unrealistic, and in terms of its budget figures, it is wildly unrealistic in terms of what it expects to accomplish. I'm very concerned that what it is a stalking horse for national health insurance, which I do not support. I think that Wisconsin is going to be experimenting with some very scaled-back versions of managed care. I think we need to be looking at medical savings accounts. We start to put some accountability back into the system where the buyers have some risk. Right now, when you go out to buy health care, you're not really purchasing health care. You're just out there having a service provided to you basically for free as far as your family is concerned. So you need to put some accountability back in the system.
Okay, you're going into session in a couple of days. What's the burning issues down in Madison? What are you going to be embroiled in this fall and into next spring?
Well, we've basically talked about them already. Crime and health care are going to be the two big issues this fall. Next year we'll be dealing probably with a mini budget again and a whole realm of issues, but those will be the hot ones this fall.
Do you have any favorite issue that you're, any bill that you're pushing through right now?
Well, I have a series of crime bills that deal with mandatory sentencing and increasing penalties for violent crimes, and we'll be looking at some juvenile justice reform and prison reform also.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the Cow Report, and have fun in Eau Claire today, and thanks again for being here.
Thanks a lot, Chuck.
This has been Chuck Lee with the Cow Report. Thank you very much.
Okay, Fred, well, there was an interview with Bob Welch. I know he's your favorite candidate for U.S. Senator next fall. What do you think about him?
I think he's a very fine and well-qualified candidate.
Do you think he's got a chance against the millionaire?
Well, as good a chance as anybody else, I guess. He's going to get out and get all over the state.
Hey, Fred, I think we had a caller on line one, if he's still there. Go ahead, caller.
Hi.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
Why do all these people vote against, like, abortion? I'm totally against it unless it's, like, a total necessary type sentence. I mean, if you got something against abortion, I mean, don't do it. But if it's really, really necessary, you know, what are you supposed to do?
Okay, Fred, just think, Fred, if you'd been aborted 76 years ago, where would you be at today?
Well, I wouldn't be here, that's for sure.
I know. Well, I think the caller was wanting to know if all abortions or if any of the abortions are necessary, or...
Well, it all depends on how you look at it. I've known of a few people who have been raped and so forth and bore a child and then put it up for adoption. I know of one case where the woman became attached to the child, although she intended to give it up. She couldn't give it up, and she kept the child.
Well, I guess the child doesn't know why it's brought into the world, Fred.
Right.
It just happens. It's part of nature. But leading up to that, the caller was pretty good about that. He didn't know that the next thing you were going to read about was just that exact subject, Fred. So
Yes. And this is from the banner, Pro-Life Wisconsin, P.O. Box 14608, Madison, Wisconsin. And it says, abortion included in the government's health care plan. Special session of the legislature is likely to be called by Governor Tommy Thompson to force votes on his health care reform plan before Christmas. Introduced on June the 3rd, 1993 in the State Senate as SB 327, the partnership plan was formulated to establish a statewide care plan for public and private employers and certain residents of the state. Governor Thompson's health care package has been a storm of controversy, including the fact that abortion coverage is part of the plan. November 10th, Wisconsin State Journal article revealed Governor Thompson still has failed to support an amendment that would exclude abortion from being covered under his plan. And this says, quote, we are asking our members to support the abortion exclusion from the health care package. If the abortion exclusion fails, pro-life legislators must oppose the whole plan, whether they're Republican or not. Children's lives come before any party politics, Johansson said. For a fact sheet on the health care plan, contact Pro-Life Wisconsin at P.O. Box 14608, Madison, Wisconsin 53714.
So this organization is against that part of the governor's health care plan.
Yes.
You missed the United We Stand people had a meeting in the middle of last week about the various plans down in Madison. I guess right now 20 out of 28 health care plans administered by the state already have provisions in them for abortion, so state employees are already using those plans to get abortion.
Is that right?
The way I understood it from Rod Moen and State Senator Rod Mullins, State Senator Dave Zine, and State Representative Dave Flombaum were at the meeting. And all I can say is, Fred, there's all kinds of different plans floating around down there. No telling which one we're going to get stuck with. There's so many of them.
Well, I hope if they pass something that they pass a good one. I would like to see them do something to make sure that those who are uninsured have some type of coverage.
Well, Fred, we got a caller on line one, so we'll see what they have to say about it. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah.
I just called and you guys hung up on me.
Well, we sure didn't mean to. We didn't know that you got hung up on.
That's not nice.
Yeah?
You guys didn't answer anything about my question.
So what was your question? We thought you got cut off. Go ahead and ask it again.
All right, I was talking about abortion, and you guys kind of got screwed up somewhere. It's not how many people it's necessary for. It is why people are so against it. I mean, if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. You know what I'm saying?
In what case would it have to be done?
All these teenagers who are getting pregnant for accidents, and if they don't allow abortion, and they hello,
Yeah.
and they don't want to tell their parents or anything, what are they supposed to do? I mean, a lot of people can get in trouble for getting pregnant at 15, 16, 17, with their parents, and maybe they're going out with a guy who's 18 and they're 14, It's just pathetic how people can just judge other people and say, well, you can't have abortion for this reason or this reason because it's not necessary.
What would you do if your 14-year-old girlfriend got pregnant? How would you handle it?
I'd say, well, look, go to the doctor. Well, go to the doctor, find out if you're really pregnant or not. Go talk to your parents, see what they want. I know quite a few people who've been raped and couldn't have abortion because the doctors, well, it's not necessary enough. There's about 3 people I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, now in the state of Wisconsin, a girl or female has to, under the age, has to get permission from a judge, isn't it, Fred?
From a parent, an adult, or a judge.
But is that fair?
I guess it is until they come up with something better.
You ask a question there, and I can tell you from an experience of a young woman that I know, she lost the job she had, which was a good job. She didn't get a job for about a month. She got another job, and she lost that, and she was evicted from her apartment and had to go home to her folks who didn't know she had the abortion. And then she got another job, and she almost lost that, and some 10 years later, her parents found out that she had an abortion because she was having all kinds of problems and has been going, or had been going for years, for counseling to get over the fact that she says, I killed my baby. That's how it affected her.
Yes, but that's some people. It should be up to the kid who wants it. I mean, it shouldn't be up to a judge. It should be up to the kids, and the parents should make up an agreement of it.
Well, I think we have a question there to ask. Are we a law unto ourselves? The purpose of sex is to procreate the human race. If you don't want to procreate the human race, you shouldn't have sex. If you're not responsible, and you aren't responsible at 14 years old, you should abstain.
So what if you are responsible at 14 years old?
Well, most people at 14 years old are not responsible. The law considers them to be a minor. And in many states, having sex with a 14-year-old is statutory rape. You'll be put in jail for that.
Well, it's not like I've done it or anything. I've just got a question.
Well, I just say that. I'm not saying that you did it, but the person who did have sex with a 14-year-old, and you see cases in the paper that come up and they go to jail.
Well, yeah. But what if it's another 14-year-old?
Well, suppose she's 15. She's still a minor.
Well, yes, I can see minor.
And even 16.
Well, there are places now where pregnant girls can go, like Apple, what is it, Fred, Apple Crisis Center here?
And birthright.
Where they can get housing and help with adoption and help with getting through school. So we need more places like that, though. There's definitely more of a need, because if we had more places like that, there probably would be less abortions, less than over 1.5 million anyway.
You got a good point there, but what I don't understand is how people can just go and discriminate girls who have had abortions. You know, like in the 60s when they had the strike thing. Oh, no more abortions, this, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that one.
It's just not fair, I don't think. And it's scary what this world is coming to. I mean, there's got to be something somebody can do about that. Like he said, get more places for, counseling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But only, stuff should be fair in life. It's so much of a challenge. There's always like wrongs, but there's really never a right.
Yep. Well, hopefully we can get it straightened out. We got another couple calls backed up, so we'll have to take those calls and I'll call her. But if you do know somebody that's in that predicament, I would suggest that you check out the other alternatives to abortion. There are some. They're in the phone book.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I think he made a point where he said the world is a scary place now. It is scary. I mean, you got 13, 14-year-olds out there having sex. And the kids that are having sex at 14 years old aren't responsible. Never will be responsible until they reach 18, 19 years old. I think the big key is education. We have to educate these kids that, like the gentleman said, there's too many kids out there that think sex is a pastime. That's a scary thought. There's a lot of people out there that want children and can't have them. I think there's a lot of alternatives to abortion. Who gives, he said it should be up to them to make the decision, not the judge. Where they say that this child lives or this child dies.
Well, there's definitely a need for babies to be adopted out. I know you can look in the Leader Telegram from time to time and you'll see an ad saying professional couple would like to adopt a newborn, or they'd like to buy the services of somebody to have their child artificially inseminated or whatever. So there is a definite need out there. So there is an alternative to abortion, and it's called an adoption. I know the adoptions seem to be going down in this country, but the demand seems to be going up. So
yeah, it's like I say, 14-year-old kids have no business having sex to begin with. They don't even really. I don't think they really even know what they're doing. It's but I think a lot of it has to do with education. I'm 30 years old, and I mean I wasn't having sex when I was 13, 14 years old, because if I did, my mom found out or my dad found out, they'd probably whoop me, for one thing,
I don't know about Fred, but when I was that age, I was more worried about winning in the next marble game, or
or
building a snow fort or something.
I know, as far as I'm concerned, I was more afraid of my father in the same way that this man would be. If I did something wrong, I don't know, my father would whale me, I know that.
Yeah, it's, I think part of the problem with society today is the morals and values have just disappeared. And I think if the young kids had a little respect for the elders and got the morals and values back into society, you wouldn't have kids running around at 13 years old having sex.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for your input, caller. We have another call on line, another line, so we better try and get that one in too. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah. That guy that just hung up, he doesn't understand what being a teenager is about. I mean, how can he say that, 14-year-olds are not mature? I don't know, has he ever been a teenager? I mean, it just seems to me that he never grew up, maybe he's still growing up right now, and he missed his childhood and doesn't want to be a kid, or.
Well, for the younger generation, us older generation feel like it was a whole different world when we were growing up than it is today. All you got to do is turn on the TV, and we're living in a very violent world, which probably makes people grow up quicker, Fred, than it did when we were growing up. I don't know. I grew up in the 50s, and it was a pretty quiet time out there.
Well, my dad did to me, he gave me a book to read, which told me about sex. It also told that if you were not ready to support a woman or a wife, that you weren't ready for sex. And he also, in that book, it showed a few pictures of the various venereal diseases that one could get by having sex outside of marriage. So I decided right then and there, after reading that book, that I would wait. And I think most of us can wait if we want to exercise self-control, and we have the ability to exercise it, whereas an animal does not have that ability. We're not animals.
Does that help you any, caller?
Well, a little bit, but okay. Well, let's say there's an 18-year-old guy, and both of them are consenting age, and they have enough money at first, but then they have the kid and they get a divorce or something. Something happens, and before the kid is born, nothing's going right, and they would have to go. The woman would have to go on welfare to support the child, and the father fled town or the state or something, and how does the woman have to, without abortion, and let's say there was no adoption opportunity there, what would she do? On welfare, there's really no way to get off it, because once the lady goes out looking for a job, she has to pay a daycare center or a babysitter, and that basically takes away the money that she makes from the job.
Yeah, there's a lot of obstacles there.
She can put it up for adoption. And I personally know of a few couples that would like to adopt a child and have been trying every which way to get a child they could adopt, and they haven't been able to get one now in 2 years.
Hello, caller, you still there? Oh, Fred, I think that caller left us. Well, Fred, there's in some countries there's 14-year-olds toting machine guns right now, fighting in
Maybe he's back again.
guerrilla warfare, like in South America and Northern Ireland.
Doesn't make it right though.
I don't know, but kids seem to be growing up under harsher conditions than when. I know when I grew up, it was pretty quiet, except the Vietnam War came on in the 60s, but 50s were a pretty quiet time out there. And now we're in the 80s, or we're in the 90s here now, Fred. At any given time, there's 40 or 50 world wars going on.
Well, there's quite a few of them going on at the present time, or revolutions.
Yep. Well, I think we got a call on line 2, if we can see about that. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah. I'd like to ask the gentleman on the left, does he believe that rape and incest is a problem at all? Sir?
It is.
Okay, do you believe that abortion would be viable in that instance at all?
Well, if I were the girl and I were raped, and I'm not a girl, as you can see,
Well, yeah,
I would bear the child, because that's a human life there. I wouldn't want somebody to take my life from me before I even came into the world.
Okay, what about the instance of people that cannot handle it emotionally or financially? I'd like to hear your viewpoints on this, because obviously you have a different viewpoint
Yes.
on the whole deal, because I've been hearing you speak out against the whole deal on a very right-wing.
I happen to read a book called the Bible, and the Bible says, "Thou shalt not, and thou shalt."
Yeah.
And I believe in living according to that book. I know one day I'm going to meet the God who created me, and I hope He's going to be merciful when I do.
Okay.
And I don't want to offend Him.
Okay. Well, is this isn't directed towards you, sure, but is this show directed towards any specific denomination at all? Just towards the general public?
Yep, it's called freedom of speech. It's just
Okay,
it's a program here. We're not.
then what does the Bible have to do with anything?
That's Freddie's belief system. That's what
That's my belief system. I was born and brought up in it, and those rights we have come from God. And the right to life is the most important right of all.
Okay, then.
And that precedes all other rights as far as I'm concerned.
All right, but if this show is directed towards the general public, non-denominational, then why are you on the show, sir?
Because there is a great need to get a show like this on the air that does support values.
But besides that, because it's the best show on at this time of night, what else have you got besides some crummy football game
Well,
between the two leaders of some stupid league, when you can watch the best watched show on TV, which is the Cow Report,
well,
right here on Channel 11, 9 o'clock on Monday evenings,
well,
from time to time.
yeah, from time to. That's understandable, but I'm just wondering how you can say that people cannot take their own lives into their own hands, and at the same time say that God can take their lives in Himself.
I didn't say that God could do it, but
Well,
unless you want to have a child, why do you have sex?
If people have their own choices, then they can have sex. I mean, do you want a totally totalitarian type of?
Well, do you want to have a totally totalitarian lifestyle that anybody who becomes pregnant wants to get rid of the child can get rid of it?
No.
Do you want to have it? What you can go over to China there, and they only can have one child there.
Are you knocking China then?
What?
Are you knocking China?
Oh, I wouldn't boost them.
well, what are you doing to them then?
I'm not doing anything to them.
Well, what did you just say then?
He said that there's 1.5 billion of them. We got to go to the next caller. Thanks a lot, but there's plenty of people over in China now. I think we had a call on line 1, Fred, but go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit here. You've probably heard of me before. I'm a guy who calls himself the Common Man. I have a program on this channel as well. I don't know if you remember, but I might as well tell you right off the bat. I agree with what you say on the show quite often. I'm pro-life, just like you guys, and everything else. I may not agree with everything you say, but not everybody agrees with me on everything either, so that's normal. The one thing I got, I remember there was a lot, I don't want to start over on that gay agenda thing, because there was a lot of flack about that deal anyway, and myself, if I was doing that, I'd have probably edited the film, but that's another story. But the other thing that I heard was that people tried to call in after the film was played, and I remember you said that the phone didn't work, but I've been told by a pretty reliable source that the phone was working, and that you weren't taking the call.
Well, the people are here that were handling the calls. You talked to the same guy that handled the calls that night, and Cliff and Chris Economack are both in the engineers in there. We do have a little bit of better system going tonight. As you saw earlier, we had some mess-ups, but now it seems to be flowing pretty good, but that's just the way it is. The phone wasn't working right. If somebody doesn't come in here and tell me line 1 or line 2, then I can't answer the phone, and that's why you'll see me looking to the right occasionally, because somebody's coming in and saying there's a call. Now, if they didn't come in and tell me that, I wouldn't have been able to take your call. But
well, I don't know. That's all I can say is that somebody called. I was told, like I said, it's a pretty reliable source. I can't say who it is, obviously, on your show, but and may not even be one of the people that was there, because I the one person that answered the phone that before I called, it doesn't sound like the person that I know. So.
Oh, that could just be communist agitators out there. I wouldn't believe everything you hear.
Well, I don't know. It's just that we're talking somebody who knows what goes on there all the time and handles things and whatever. And it's been, there's more than one person in there really, but it was one particular person that told me. And the thing of it is, it just I can only, unless it was a practical joke played on the both of us here, I kind of have to go along with what was said there by this person.
Well, whatever. I know that I know what happened in here, and I know that we had a mess up that night on the phone. So
I wish that we had gotten those calls.
we had 3 or 4 people calling up after the show was over. I finally got through to a few of those, but nothing I can do about the phone system down here. It's kind of antiquated for taking calls, but this is public access. What can you expect?
Well, I don't know. Just that I can only go by what that person.
Well, so what's the point, Common Man? You just trying to boost your ratings, or what? We're trying to do a show.
I don't even know if we even have a rating system. I mean, I know how many people look at my show. I've had people come up to me, not just people that I've known in the past. But
okay, you're trying to get an ad in here. What time is your show on?
Well, if you wanted me to, okay. If you want me to promote my show, fine. I'm on a week from tomorrow night.
What time?
I believe it's 8 or 8:30. I can look at the schedule. Let me check. I'm on at 8 o'clock.
Okay, you're on 8 o'clock next Saturday. Well, thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fred. I think we finally got back to our senses here. All right. Fred, did you know that 8 to 10 million animals were euthanized in animal shelters last year because of lack of space and disease risk? Shelters usually hold animals only 72 hours before killing them. And 1/3 of them dogs in the shelters are purebred, Fred, and they still get rid of them. 8 to 10 million of them.
That's kind of sad.
Kind of a nitwit.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's because people don't go get their animals when they disappear.
Well,
First place they ought to call
that's
is the animal
kind of
shelter.
sad.
I know.
Kind of sad. I know. I had to have my dog done away with when I had one, and that broke my heart. I couldn't drive away from the place after I brought it in there, and she looked at me, and I left it in there. I got out in the car, and I cried for 15 minutes.
Uh-huh. Okay, Fred, we got a couple calls on it. Probably the common man wanting to call back and put in another commercial for his highly rated show. So I'll take line 2 here. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah. The guy who called after the guy who said his dad would whip him,
Yeah.
he had a point on abortion. And who's this guy with the jacket and tie?
Where's he at?
Oh, sitting right next to you.
That's me.
Oh, really?
This guy?
Yeah, that guy.
That's,
I'd like to tell you something.
that's Freddie K. Stafford,
Oh,
For-
Mr. Stafford,
former commander of the American Legion.
I like your coat and tie. You remind me of a redneck who
Yeah,
likes to grade everybody,
All right,
who
that's good.
discriminate everybody.
I wish I could. I wish I could
Discrimination
say
ain't
the same thing about you, but I can't.
Discrimination ain't nice. You just discriminate China and everybody else.
All right, that's the way I feel.
Abortion.
That's the way I
Come on,
feel,
man.
and your talking
Oh,
is not
man.
going to change it.
This stuff is all baloney, you know?
That's what I think. Why don't you stop?
Stop what?
Stop the baloney.
Because I'm trying to prove a point here.
You can't prove it because you
Okay, you
haven't
got-
got a valid point.
Okay, caller, you got 10 seconds to prove your point. Go ahead.
Point is you're a redneck.
All right, well, thank you very little. Okay. You got a call on line 1. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, how you doing? This is Buck.
Who?
This is Buck from western Wisconsin. I tried calling in 2 weeks ago, too, on that gay agenda thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't get through, but that's beside the point. Fred, don't you let that guy get on your nerves about being a redneck. The kid's a nitwit. Doesn't have too much upstairs.
Well, maybe when he gets a little older, he will realize that too.
Yeah,
But we were all young one time when we thought we knew it all.
yeah, but this whole thing with him attacking you personally, that's not the way to go. He's been calling in 3 or 4 times tonight, and he really doesn't have a valid point. He just wants to try to deal with his feelings and emotions. And if he's so hepped up on China, he ought to maybe move over there. But does he know that they're only allowed 1 child over in China, and they kill if there's any more than 1 child, they kill them?
Mhm.
So he really kind of suffers from rectal cranial inversion on this deal, and he really doesn't understand what the scope is. Hopefully he'll learn someday. But myself, I kind of like that guy.
Which one?
Not yours, Chuck. I like Fred.
You like Freddie or his tie?
Now, the common man, he was plugging his show there.
Yeah, he's just trying to boost his ratings.
Yeah, well, he's got a long ways to go to catch up to you guys. You guys are number 1, and then number 2 tonight was that 700 Club with Ollie North.
Oh, I missed that.
You, pretty good one.
Well, that'll be on rerun again at 1 o'clock tonight, so I have to tune in on that.
Number 3 was Monday Night Football.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
little nitwit that was calling in, I think he's just kind of gibbering a little bit too much. Just probably discretions of his youth. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he really didn't have a valid point. He came across fairly ignorant. He didn't even address the responsibility side of that, where with all these aberrant, deviant behavior, the taxpayer, you and me, usually ends up having to foot the bill for all the diseases and treatment of the goofy population. What do you think about that, Fred?
I agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
we wind up by paying the bill.
Yeah.
well, we've definitely had, the last 15, 20 years of propagandizing the youth in the public schools, in the government school system, so that they know how to have sex now, but they don't know how to take care of the end result of that.
Yeah, and if you get this socialized medicine through, that's going to be another terrible thing. But I think one term Billy, I think he's going to be out in '96.
Yeah, it'll take 2 years just to roll back all the programs he's pushed through.
Yeah, but well, we got the Bob Doles and the Bob Dornans in there. They should be able to stem the tide, so to speak.
You know, they threw $1 million against Bob Dornan last time, and they still couldn't beat him.
Yeah, well, he's right. And then Rush seems to be doing a pretty decent job. Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah,
But maybe that little kid could call Rush, and Rush could set him straight.
yeah.
So it's kind of too bad, but he might be a product of that educational system there where they want everything fair and everything handed to them, and they don't want to work for anything.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get through 2 weeks ago. I know
Hey, don't worry about it. Them things happen.
we had quite a few calls backed up there, and just like the technical difficulties tonight there at the beginning, we finally got them ironed out. But by the time we got them ironed out, actually that was about a month ago.
I guess the other thing I'd like to commend you to on your patience with that little punk. You know, it didn't cut him right off, and then when you finally gave him time, he could express himself very well. So you guys are to be commended for that.
Well, thanks a lot.
Okay, well, this is Buck from western Wisconsin signing off. I'm going hunting.
Okay, 10-4. I hope you get a big one.
You betcha.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'd like to defend the man on your left or on your right. I'd like to defend him against the caller that called him a redneck, because that wasn't. Yeah, him, the guy on your left with the glasses. Him. Yeah, the guy. Yeah, him. The guy that called him a redneck, he had no right in saying that due to the fact that this man has his opinion and he should be able to state it. And when he called him that, he's being extremely narrow-minded. And I think if he called back, he should get a severe tongue lashing.
Okay, well, Fred's good at that.
Yeah, and when he said about China, about having one child, I read somewhere that when they have floods over there, that they just keep the boys and they let the girls, if the girls get washed away in the floods, they don't look for them. And the last caller had to say about being fair and all that stuff. Well, the man on your left, on your right, he is.
Yeah, but that's what you said is true. They aren't very fair over there in China because there are human rights abuses and have been for quite a few years there.
Yeah, you're correct. And they come over here and they try to start wars and they get their gangs together and all that stuff, and then people try to defend them and all this stuff, and it's just hard to explain.
Well, there's all kinds of gangs. I was going to show a interview tonight, but we got carried away with calls here. But not just Asian gangs. There's all kinds of gangs out there. So
Got that right.
Well, caller, we got one more call on line one, and then I think we're going to hang it up for the night.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Bye.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
There's Carlos.
Hello? Well, Fred? Hello, caller, you're on the air.
You're kidding. I can't believe it. I thought you said you weren't taking any more calls, but I guess you are. I guess what I called up to say originally, I was going to comment about the animal thing that you were saying.
Yeah?
And then you started getting into the opinion issue about, expressing yourself. And I'm not really sure what the guy on your right is on TV for. Is he running for some type of political office, or is he just here to express his feelings on things?
Well, Fred probably ran for governor right now. He'd get elected. That's all I can say.
You think so?
Sure.
Well, I really don't. Is he from the Eau Claire area, or?
Yeah.
And he's just here to express how he feels about things.
Yep. Well, caller, I got one more call I'm going to try and squeeze in, and then we're going to call it a night. We got started a couple minutes late, so they owe me a couple minutes. It's the American way. So thanks a lot. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
My name's Cyril Ackley.
Yeah.
I'd like to. You guys kind of come off as a kind of a backwoods Nazis, as far as I see your views.
Well, thank you.
Well, the way you present your show, it kind of seems like you guys come off as there's nothing better than what's white, what's right, and I'd kind of like to hear you both explain yourselves. If that's all right, because I've been hearing you knock China and the red as it goes.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them out there. Somebody needs to be knocking them.
Well, this is kind of a land called America.
I know.
It's kind of hard to sit here and listen to you guys knock any specific denomination.
Well, we're not even talking about denominations. When I get down to denominations, Fred's Catholic and I'm Protestant, so I don't know where you're coming from. And we got a Pollock on the camera, so What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, but hey, maybe you got a nigger behind the curtain, and you got a.
Don't use that word on this program.
You know. I just kind of hear,
Well,
you guys kind of get off like you guys are something better than people outside of the mapped out.
well, it's a good thing to do reading. I got a little library that's got about 100 books on communism, and about 30 of them are on Red China. And what it says in there is alarming as far as their abuse of human rights, the slaughter of people who opposed communism, and those people have to be defended.
Fred, don't get me started on communism. I think we
Okay.
got to go, Fred.
Yeah.
We're eating into Channel 13's news now. There's thousands of people out there that want to see the news.
Okay.
We can't let them go until we shut the show down. So
Okay.
thanks a lot for watching the Cow Report. As usual. Woo. I want to thank you, and we'll see you again either